NelsonJoypad.com bring you another original.
Hello, my name is Trevor Anderson. I'm with Mouse and Joypad, and today I'm pleased to introduce you to an interview I had with Lorne Lanning, one of the founding members of Oddworld Inhabitants, creators of the game Abe's Odyssey, Abe's Exodus, and Stranger's Wrath. When him and Sherry McKean released Abe's Odyssey in 1997, it was met with critical acclaim and universal praise. However, Lorne Lanning has never bit his tongue when it comes to how he feels publishers treat developers in the video game industry. I spoke to him about the serious issue, also crowdfunded games, and we spoke about his series. My first question, what was the most memorable experience you ever had while creating the Oddworld series? Of course, he spoke about the people that the game has influenced and helped throughout the years.
Yeah, he's 100% legally blind. And he's a computer, he's an engineering student. And computer science, engineering, I think exactly what type of engineering I'm not sure, but he wants to be an astronaut. Oh, wow. Right? And don't think he's not going to. Like a guy like that, he's just such intent, right? It's so inspiring to hear these stories. So we've found some of these stories like him, where through fan mail, where he's just going, thank you for doing the audio the way you did, because it's more like a movie. I can get a picture in my mind. Thank you for having infinite lives, because I was able to fail infinite times, but through every one of those, I could form a better picture of what is actually happening here. Thanks for all the attention to audio detail, Foley, things like that. And you're like, I never imagined that that would be possible, and yet you have a fan that comes through and inspires you. We got an early fan mail. It was like 9 pages of handwritten letter. It's from a guy who's 72 years old out of England. And he goes, you're not going to believe this, but I had to write to you because your game changed and saved my life. And then he continues to write. And when we received this at the company and it was read to the company, everyone was crying because he starts to talk about it. He goes, I was a World War II soldier. I went through this, I went through that. I was a retired truck driver. I drove heavy equipment. I did all these things, And my wife had a prolonged illness, and I guess it was hard. And then until she eventually died. So it was like 10 years of really difficult. He said, I forgot how to laugh. I forgot how to see joy. I forgot how to be positive. I was becoming a grumpy, mean, depressed. And to the point where he wanted to kill himself. And so he had his old service revolver. And he found, I just can't do it. So he started getting really aggravated on himself for not being able to pull the trigger. He's going, why is it? Why don't I have the nerve to do this? And he said, maybe it's because I still have these few extra 100 pounds in the bank. I'm going to go blow them on the most stupid, frivolous thing I would never buy as a responsible adult. So he goes to the store, he's looking, what am I getting? Video games, he picks out a PlayStation. And he's looking across the titles and he sees Abe and he feels like the face of Abe. He feels like this kind of pathetic guy, doesn't fit in. So he buys Abe. He's 72 years old. The last cash, he's just going to go play a game, have a laugh, and then do it. Get it over with. But what happened, he said, is I started playing the game, and I started laughing. And I hadn't laughed in years. My grandchildren don't come over. I'm just a lonely old man now. And I had isolated myself, and I had had enough. I started laughing again. And as I started to laugh, and I was playing, I got into it, and I couldn't stop, and I started identifying with Abe, and I started identifying that I was like Abe, and I had nothing really going for me, but if I just kept going, I could do it. And you built it in so that no matter what, I could be shitty at gaming, but if I tried long enough, I would eventually succeed. And he talks about how this got him past, what am I doing thinking of killing myself? What am I doing not calling my grandkids? So he started having Abe tea parties for his grandkids. They were like, what happened to Grandpa? He's totally changed. He renewed his relationship with his daughter, his family. The BBC did a special on him after this. We were like, this is an amazing story. We gave it to the PR company. And they were like, this is an amazing story. BBC does a show on him, or a special on him. And all of these things, and you find out the games changed someone's life. The games saved someone's life. We've heard that similar story, not with a 72-year-old, a couple of times, how people were lonely, how they were defeated, how they in our experience, they found laughter, and they found that persistence would eventually get them to win.
Lanning went on to describe his idea of game theory as he went through the development of Abe's Odyssey.
I love Miyamoto and I love the Nintendo games, but it really irritated me that I would have 3 tries or I'd have to start over. Oh, you didn't do it that well, so basically you're going to repeat the grade. You know, the whole class again, the whole semester, the whole level. It was like, this is terrible design. That's how I used to think, and I mean that. I didn't want that. I was like, if you're designing a coin-op experience where you need my next coin, or you need my next free-to-play trigger, okay, give me limited lives and penalize me greatly and make me come back next week and spend more quarters. But this is in my living room. And if I want to keep on trying just because I'm not great, don't ruin the experience for me because I'm just not good enough to play your game. Give me a chance. If I'm shitty at your playing your game, let me be shitty. And it'll take me 10 times longer to let me do it. That was always my philosophy. So while we built hard games, and at times we were criticized and praised and criticized for it, and you know, they were harder at times than I wanted them to be, but you know, it's tough building games. But while they were hard, we gave you infinite lives. We never said, oh, you suck so bad, we're gonna go undo your achievements so you can go back there and really penalize you. I was like, that's how the real world works. I'm sick of that shit in life. You know, oh, you didn't pay this on time, we're going to fine you. Oh, you didn't do this, we're going to, you know, like there's all kinds of penalties everywhere, right? Credit card companies are gouging each other, their clients, their customers. I just look at the things of life and I reflect that back in games and I go, what type of experience do we really want to have? Even though we were making action-adventure games, I wanted people to have to use their mind. I wanted you to not just solve your problems through being superiorly violent and you know, a superior fighter. Because where in life are you really going to apply those skills, right? You know, my partner in this effort was Sherry McKenna, and who's a brilliant producer and a brilliant person overall. And I was trying to convince her to go out and leave the film industry, to which she had dozens and dozens of Clio Awards, Film Awards, you know, all kinds of stuff, long history. She did all the effects for The Last Starfighter, you know, like, been there. And I'm like, we want to go make games. Let's go make games. And she's like, are you insane? Why do I want to make games? And she's just seeing shooters and Doom and this and that. She's like, why do I want anything to do with it? And I was like, because we can tell stories. And we're going to be about helping rather than killing. I mean, we're going to let some killing happen. But we're going to be about rescuing. We're going to be about empathy versus aggression. Meaning, the paradigm that I said was, I was like, Sherry, check this out. You know, games is largely aggression equals rewards. What if we could flip that to empathy equals rewards? That set us up with a certain problem, and now how do we make characters more empathetic? How do we do that? Well, that was the invention of GameSpeak. Because if I can say hello and you say hello back and I go follow me and you follow me, maybe I feel a little responsible because I'm telling you what to do. Yeah. And the way you responded was cute. And so I feel like, oh, you know, all the women when we were first doing it, hello, follow me, okay. You know, the women were like, oh, you know, all the time, oh, and they do a little sneak, you know, oh, look at that, he's sneaking with you, oh, that's so cute. But then they get whacked, they're like, why'd you get him whacked, you know? And so the idea was if we could make them more emotionally compelling, more emotive, then maybe you get a little deeper connected to them. That was the idea, and empathy was a core driver for trying to go, okay, now how do we figure this out so that we don't ruin the experience? And part of it was, well, they're action-adventure games, but this guy's never going to carry a gun. But there's going to be some shooting in the game. And you're like, you don't get it, you know, the existing, the pros in game design of the day, you know, you don't get it. You can't give someone a weapon and take it away. It only pisses off the gamer. I was like, I get it, but so that's our problem to solve. But we are not going to have the guy carry a gun. Yeah. You know, we're not going to. That was the birth of possession, because it was like, how do we give you a gun to solve some problems, have it for a little while, take it away, and you don't miss it, right? If we gave it to Abe, first of all, we tarnish the brand of what that character represents. And then we take it away. You're going to be pissed off because you're like, I had that gun, now I don't. But if you were possessing, you had the benefit of a little free ride that you knew when it was over, of course you wouldn't have the gun. You blew the guy up. So just like these little logic things led to the creative, these little sort of logic problems where we'd say, okay, here's what we need as a result. We don't know what the answer is, but here's the problem. How do we get there? And I think, you know, a lot of people really thrive in that creative setting where you go, we're not necessarily, we don't have the creative solutions right away, but part of our creative process is creating the problem that we need to solve. And so, like, that's how you get those results. You know, it's not like, oh, I see a game where people talk to each other. It's more like, how do we make characters more empathetic? And then if they can emote and if they can talk, then we're going to feel more connected. And if they feel more connected, then we're going to feel more responsible for them, unless we want to be in a bad mood and kill everybody, and then we can feel more devious around them, you know. But even if you do that, we want to let you. See, this is where I was playing, I say, Nintendo games of the day, and I couldn't do bad things to characters. I could do bad things with this tool or that tool to enemies, but to the friends, I couldn't do anything. And I'm like, in real life, I can. Yeah. In real life, I can stab my friend in the back. Now I should have the price I should pay for that down the road. So that's what came with Karma. We wanted you to let you do bad things, but we would have alternative endings based on how your karma was along the way. You know, how you treated other people. All those were driving towards empathy. And that was the idea, empathy.
After recent developments at Konami, I wanted to ask Mr. Lanning what he felt of that current situation and how developers can get out of those kinds of situations.
I think here's the big problem. You know, I was quoted in some magazines recently for saying this, but the big problem isn't so much an industry problem, it's a capitalism problem. Right? So what we have is we have public companies that have raised money to become big. And now, the only reason anyone's investing in them is to hope that they get bigger. So there's nothing about sustainability, there's nothing about keeping people employed, it's all about making money for shareholders, right? And that's kind of a problem with our world today. Now, you let that trickle down. So you got big companies that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars to go out and become public, or they've grown themselves into there through investors. Those investors want returns. We can understand, right? This is pressure. And so now they come in and they go, wow, kind of where you're leading, what you're asking to is, why aren't we hearing about individual designers as much anymore on big IPs? Because it's not in their advantage to promote them, because the day the guy turns on him, he's saying bad things about the company, and maybe that affects the company's stock value. Maybe he doesn't care, but maybe that affects 200 people's jobs. Like, maybe that affects a revenue stream for multiple productions. I remember people were late and missed Christmas, and they were like, it'll be ready when it's ready. Meanwhile, they were being published by a public company that said it'll be ready by Christmas, and then they didn't have it, and then their stock fell, and now it was a $100 million hit on the value of their corporation. Like, these things that artists typically don't think through. You know, I don't know the case there specifically. I know at times I didn't when I opened my big mouth. But so we go, okay, I can understand your needs, right? I can understand the creative's needs. I can understand what's creating these pressures. These pressures are always going to be on public companies to get bigger, have growth, and make more money. And if that means going and firing half your staff because that's a good thing to do that helps you become more profitable next year, then that's what you do. There's no loyalty in this. There's no loyalty to, you know, we don't have Japanese culture of companies where people feel like they're going to work for a corporation for the rest of their life the way they do in gaming in Japan. You know, kids grow up saying, if I can ever get a job at Square, I will never have another job. I will stay there for life. Square, Nintendo, Konami, Capcom, they feel this way about those brands, right? And oftentimes those companies feel that way about their employees, like families. So what we're talking about in the case of Kojima is a very unique thing happening in Japanese culture, because usually it's very aligned, it's very respectful, it's very together as an outward face. So obviously there's turmoils, you know, for this to happen. What can the industry do? Well, people need to get more independent. If you want to go borrow lots of money, or if you want your game to be spent, you know, $50 million to spend on your game, and you want to be the artist auteur, you're kind of barking up the wrong tree for what you're really after. If you want to be the artist auteur, figure out how to do it cheaper and better. Or if you feel like you're Michael Bay and you know that the teenage audience is yours and you're all about maximizing the most amount of money on box office, and you don't really care about the poetic quality potential of your craft, you know, like how Kubrick would or Coppola would. There's a big difference between these guys, right? But Michael Bay's making more money than all, right? So if you're Michael Bay and you want to go get $50 million, $100 million from a publisher to have an IP of their IP, and you're going to go out and make it a big hit for them because you're a great director, and you understand what you're dealing with, more power to you. If you want Michael Bay's success, but you want total creative freedom, you're just not being honest with yourself about you're not going to be being rational about what the industry has to offer you. So you got to figure out who you are. Are you someone who cares more about making money and seeing your game in lights, or are you someone who cares more about the types of things you're building and writing and doing what's close to your own heart? Today, now, you know, 10 years ago, I didn't see any outlet to be Kubrick in the game business, right? And now I more associate with Kubrick than I do with Michael Bay, just as an artist, as a creator. And so we placed a bet that we thought the future was going to be equally viable if we bet on digital distribution and the audience, as opposed to betting on publishers and retailers. We said we think digital distribution and the audience will let us build more of what's important to us, but it's going to take us a while to nurture that into a viable business where we can start funding our own real content. And even now, in the last title, we spent millions of dollars on New and Tasty, but it was still not enough money to take us into new story IP land. We need more money than that, so we had to become more practical about how we build our business up, how we build the reservoir of cash up so we can actually spend, risk, and do our own thing, because I know that in what I want to do, the stories I want to create, they're very dear and personal to me, and I hope that I'm being smart enough to listen to what an audience is really looking for and figuring out how I can apply my creativity into something that they would like, right? Or I can just go off and say, I think what I'm going to do is brilliant, the whole world should love it, just leave me alone, I'll come back to you when it's done. Chances that that's really going to hit is slim. The beauty is that Kojima tomorrow, I don't know what his contract says, but he could go anywhere and get money to build his games. Now, if his games are saying, I want $30 million, I want to own the IP, I want this control and that control, no one's going to pay for it. If he's saying, I have a new IP I want to build, I want to launch it for $2 million, I'm willing to share it in these types of ways, this is how we're going to get there, it's a reasonable plan, I'll bet he'd get that money like that. Because he's got the integrity of it, meaning his product speaks to a lot of people, he's got a lot of fans, he doesn't need to be working for someone else. But if he doesn't want to have the entrepreneurial spirit, I don't know the man, but that's going to take some entrepreneurial spirit. If you just want to say, no, just leave me alone and let what I do, then you at least need to be entrepreneurial enough to surround yourself with people that are going to do the things you don't want to do so that you guys can be autonomous. But if you want to go just be an employee at a big place directing the motion picture at Disney, at Paramount, at Universal, you're going to have to play by their rules.
I also wanted to speak to Mr. Lanning about his experience with crowdfunding and what he thinks some of the opportunities and downfalls of the platform could be.
Kickstarter is absolutely a viable alternative, but doing a Kickstarter, you have a similar problem to putting your product on a shelf. How are you drawing people to it? Why are they interested? You're going to have to have some nugget of something special. Like, let's say I'm an animation guy and I want to do something new and different with animation, and I want game animators and people who appreciate animation in games and CG. That's going to be my first audience, and I'm going to deliver a little kernel of goodness into there that's going to show them some animation stuff of a guy climbing up like they've never seen it before. It's going to be 20 seconds long, but they can play it. I'll use that to get my Kickstarter. I'll let the animation community know, please support me. Like, somewhere you're going to have some community of people that are interested in what you're doing, aware that even went online, right? How many Kickstarters launch a day? Right? How many mobile games launch per day? 500. 500 mobile games are launching every day now. How is yours going to get seen? Big problem, right? So while the funding for crowdfunding is massive in its potential opportunity, the Lucky Palmer never would have got funded if it weren't for Kickstarter, right? Would Double Fine be in the shape they're in today if it weren't for Kickstarter? We can go on and on, about success stories, but there's a lot of failures there. So now, what are the dangers? The dangers are, you got to be authentic and you got to be reasonable with your audience. The dangers are, people say, well, we can only do a Kickstarter, we should only ask for $300,000 because that's all we think they'll give us, and if we make that, at least we got a chance. But really, it's going to take $2 million to build a product. You're just asking for trouble, right? I think in the case of Goddess, maybe Peter got into taking a little flack that way. Yeah. And he admitted, and I really appreciate that he admitted, you have a team, you have a responsibility, you're trying to bring in cash, you're trying to feed them, and you're trying to figure out, like, this is an opportunity to make money, not to make money, but to build more product and maybe keep us employed. Mm-hmm. Now you're looking at a team going, I don't want to have to tell them they're unemployed. Mm-hmm. You start bending the truth a little to try and sell. And, that's called Wall Street. That's called Madison Avenue. Everyone's bending the truth to sell, right? It's Silicon Valley, and we know the financial markets are all hijinks and fixed and rigged markets now. Labor is rigged, right? Everything's rigged. So what do people care about? Well, authenticity. That's the new scarcity. That's the new rare mineral is authenticity. And so I think people are resonating with it more, and if they sense that there's something that you're doing that's non-authentic, I think they backlash at you like never before, because they all have a voice now. Like you would read before in magazines and on the news and on TV, and beyond that you could complain with each other, or you could send a letter to the editor, but you had no voice. You couldn't make a comment on the end of the article or on YouTube or on the TVs. You couldn't make a comment on the bottom of CNN and give your opinion. Actually, on the web today, you still can't give your opinion on CNN, but you got plenty of other blogs that you can do that with, and you actually have a voice. So the audience has a voice today. And what that means is if the audience gets upset with you, they backlash faster than ever, right? Yeah. And so authenticity has value. We discussed the crowdfunding possibilities for Oddworld, and the truth is I think the audience has an expectation for quality that's up here. I can't go asking for here and say I'm going to deliver here and just hope that we ask for this low price, but that it goes high enough that we can actually make it. So I'm not doing it yet, because I don't see that it would raise the amount, or that we have the number of followers to hit it yet. Now that may be changing. There may be different things we do to do it, but the price that we would ask for is not the price that people are asking for. And the reason we're not going to ask for that is because it's not reasonable to deliver for that. It's not being authentic with the audience. We'd be saying we could bake this for X amount, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we would be lying. You can get in trouble that way. That's what I think is a big danger.
And we finished the interview with me asking about what the future of the series holds.
It's going to be on Wii U and PS Vita, and we got Munch's Odyssey coming on mobile, and that's coming out shortly. Well, the future, you know, we're touching on it in that we've been doing as clever as we can to basically do what publishers have done for years, and we've been really slow to do, which is figure out how to exploit your property across multiple SKUs so you can make more money, earn more money, and invest more back in the games. What we hope is that we're able to self-finance to the point where we can really start launching that new IP from Oddworld, finish the quintology. That's, you know, I've got a story I really want to tell. The changing times are shaping right in our direction. Abe was really the original 99%er in games, right? And that was before we had the coin of it. I think the time's right. I want to play with all kinds of issues that are going on today. Civil unrest, police brutality. I want to go there. I want to put that in games. I want to turn it into dark comedy. And that's my intent, but the truth is it needs the audience support. Everything we release has to stay at a high quality, or we're going to lose the following that we have. And the truth is the following that we have is allowing us to invest more and more and more, to the point where we could at least make new and tasty. I think, you know, right now we're planning out Abe's Exodus, and with success in both, I think we're well staged to start delivering that new IP, but we're going to require that success.
I want to thank Mr. Lanning for sitting down with us at Mouse and Joypad. In the small amount of time I had with him, it seems like he's a very passionate game developer, and I can't wait to get back into Oddworld for a new adventure. I'm Trevor Anderson. Thank you for watching this interview.
It's fucking great.